You're sitting at your kitchen table on a Sunday night. The house is finally quiet. Kids are out or asleep, or maybe they moved back in and you don't want to think about that right now. And for some reason, you pull up your retirement account. Maybe it's been a few months since you looked. You see the number and something tightens in your chest, not because it's zero, not because you've done nothing, but because at 53 or 54 or 55, that number just doesn't feel like enough. You've been working for 30 years of showing up, getting it done, holding things together, and that balance sitting there on the screen feels like it should be so much bigger than it is. I know that feeling. I've had that exact Sunday night. And here's something nobody told me or you. There's a number that changes everything. Not $1 million, not even close. It's $100,000. And what happens after you cross that line is one of the most powerful financial shifts you will ever experience. Most of us in our generation have no idea this inflection point exists. And if you're anywhere near it or even halfway there, what I'm about to break down could completely reshape how the next 10 years play out for you. My name is Jack. I'm Gen X, same as you. And I spend a lot of time studying what actually works financially for people like us in our 50s. Not the recycled advice designed for 25-year-olds, but real strategies for where we actually are right now. If that's useful to you, hit subscribe and tap the thumbs up. It helps more than you think. Quick reminder, I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Now let's get into this. Let's be honest about something before we go any further. Yeah, if you're in your 50s and your savings number doesn't look the way you thought it would by now, yeah, that is not a character flaw. That is a resume. And I say that as someone living in the same chapter you are. Think about what our generation has actually been through. We entered our prime earning years right as the dot-com bubble popped in 2001. Portfolios got cut in half. Companies folded overnight. We picked ourselves up, rebuilt, started gaining real momentum, and then 2008 hit like a freight train. Millions of us lost homes, lost retirement accounts, lost jobs. Some lost all three in the same year. And then just when we were finally clawing our way back, COVID shut the entire economy down in 2020. And here's the part nobody talks about. While all of that was happening, we were also raising kids, helping aging parents, paying down student loans that were twice what our parents ever dealt with, and trying to navigate a 401k system that nobody ever sat down and explained to us. Pensions disappeared, employer loyalty disappeared, the rules kept changing, and somehow we were supposed to figure all of it out on our own. This isn't a discipline problem. This isn't a spending too much on coffee problem. This is a generation that got hit by 3 supposedly once-in-a-lifetime economic disasters before we turned 55. So, no, you're not behind because you were reckless. We're behind because the road we were driving on kept getting washed out from under us. But here's where the story starts to shift. Let's talk about what actually happens at $100,000. Yet, because the math here is genuinely surprising, and nobody lays it out this simply. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's late business partner, a man who spent 70 years studying money, once said that the first 100,000 is the hardest part. And he wasn't just being philosophical. He was describing a real mathematical phenomenon that most financial content completely glosses over. Here's the plain version. Say you're investing consistently and earning a roughly 7% average annual return, which is close to the historical stock market average after inflation. Going from $0 to $100,000 takes about 7 to 8 years of steady contributions. That's the grind. That's the uphill part where it feels like nothing's moving. I've been there. You've probably been there. But going from 100,000 to 200,000, that takes roughly half the time, 4 to 5 years. And from 200,000 to 300,000, even less, because now your money has real momentum. Working alongside your effort, think of it like pushing a stalled car. Those first 10 feet are brutal. You're doing all the work and it barely moves. But once the wheels start rolling, each push gets easier. That's compounding. And at 100,000, your money finally starts pushing with you. At a 7% return, 100,000 generates about $7,000 a year all on its own. That's not your paycheck contributions, that's your money earning money. And every year, that growth stacks on top of itself, building a bigger and bigger base. Now here's where this gets specific to people like us. If you're 53 years old today with 100,000 saved out and you contribute just $500 a month, earning 7%, by 67, you're looking at roughly $450,000. Close to 100,000 of that is pure compound growth. Money you didn't earn at a job. Money your money made for you. Is that $1 million? No, but it's the difference between a retirement that functions and one that falls apart. And it all turns at that first 100,000. So if the math is this straightforward, why do so many of us stall out before we ever reach this number? Or worse, why do some hit it and not even realize the shift that's happening? Because this isn't a math problem. It's a psychological one. And trust me, I've had to confront this in myself before I could write about it for anyone else. A 2023 report from the National Institute on Retirement Security found that Gen X has the single largest gap between what they've saved and what they'll actually need in retirement, larger than boomers and larger than millennials. And the researchers pointed to something that should get more attention than it does. It's not that we earn less, it's that our generation consistently delays financial action because of something psychologists call financial shame. We've been operating in survival mode for 20 years, and survival mode doesn't allow space for planning. Survival mode says, pay this bill, handle this emergency, get through this month. Growth mode, where you actually build real wealth, requires a sense of stability and safety that our generation has rarely been given. And there's another layer that I think about a lot. We were raised on self-reliance. We were the latchkey kids. We came home to empty houses, made our own dinners, figured things out without asking anyone. That independence, which served us so well in our 20s and 30s, becomes a trap in our 50s, because the person who always figures it out alone is also the person who won't hire an advisor, won't open that 401k statement, won't even search catch-up contributions online, because admitting you need to catch up feels dangerously close to admitting you failed. But we didn't fail. We survived over and over again. The thing is, surviving and building are two completely different operating modes, and our nervous systems don't always know which one to be in. Here's why the 100,000 mark matters beyond the math. It's the moment you shift from I'm behind and it's probably too late to I have something real and it's growing. That psychological shift from scarcity to momentum quietly changes every financial decision you make from that point forward. You stop avoiding. You start building, and the math rewards you for it. But here's where it gets really interesting. Most mainstream financial advice hammers one number into your head: $1 million. Save $1 million, you need $1 million. Without $1 million, you're in trouble. And for someone in our generation hearing that at 54 with $130,000 saved, that number doesn't feel like a goal. It feels like a cruel joke. I remember the first time I ran a retirement calculator and saw that gap. It nearly shut me down completely. Here's the part most people completely miss. You don't need $1 million, you need an income plan. And those are two very different things. Let me break this down. $1 million in a retirement account using the standard 4% withdrawal rule gives you $40,000 a year. That's the textbook advice. But here's what almost nobody factors into the conversation: Social Security. The average Social Security benefit right now is roughly $22,000 per year. But if you've earned above the median for most of your career, which most Gen Xers with professional or skilled work histories have, your benefit is likely in the range of $30,000 to $36,000 per year. So now run the numbers differently. If your Social Security delivers $30,000 a year and you need $60,000 a year to live comfortably, you only need your investments to cover the remaining $30,000. At a 4% withdrawal rate, that means you need $750,000 in savings, not $1 million. $750. And here's the real kicker. If you delay claiming Social Security from 62 to 67, your monthly benefit increases by roughly 30%. Delay all the way to 70, and it goes up by about 76% compared to filing early. That's not a market bet. That's not a maybe. That's a guaranteed inflation-adjusted increase for the rest of your life. So the actual equation for people like us isn't somehow save $1 million in 10 years. The real equation is build your savings into strong six-figure territory, optimize your Social Security timing, and create a drawdown plan that makes both pieces work together. At $100,000, you're not standing at the starting line. You've already cleared the hardest stretch. And when you combine compound growth, catch-up contributions, and strategic Social Security timing, the next 10 years of wealth building will outpace anything we managed to do in the last 20. That's not hope. That's math. All right, let's make this concrete. Here are 3 specific steps, and every one of them is something you can start in the next 30 days. I've done all 3 myself, so I'm not handing you a checklist from a textbook. Step 1, and do this before anything else. Find out your real number. Not roughly, not I think it's somewhere around your exact retirement balance across every single account you have. That means old 401ks sitting at previous employers, IR, as you opened in 2014 and haven't looked at since, that small pension from the company that got acquired, a brokerage account you started and forgot about. Log into every account, write the total down on one piece of paper. This takes one Saturday afternoon. And I promise you, most people our age have never actually done this. We can't build a strategy from a guess. And here's the thing, the number might actually be better than you expect, especially if you've had employer matches compounding quietly in the background. Even if the number is lower than you want, knowing it is the single most important step out of survival mode and into growth mode. You can't fix what you can't measure. The second thing, which most advisors skip entirely, maximize your catch-up contributions starting this calendar year. If you're over 50, the IRS gives us a specific advantage that younger workers don't get. You can contribute an additional $7,500 to your 401k on top of the standard $23,000 limit. That's $30,500 per year going into a tax-advantaged account. If you have an IRA, the catch-up is an additional $1,000, bringing your total to $8,000 per year. These limits exist for a reason. The government knows people in their 50s need to accelerate. Most of us either don't know this is available or assume we can't afford it, but even bumping your contribution up by 2 or 3% of your paycheck this month compounds into a meaningful difference over the next 10 years. Call your HR department this week or log into your plan provider's website tonight. Change the number. It takes 5 minutes. Third, and this one is specific to our age group, build a Social Security timing strategy before you touch anything else in your retirement plan. Go to ssa.gov and create your My Social Security account if you haven't already. Pull up your estimated benefits at 62, 67, and 70. Compare those numbers. For most of us, the difference between filing at 62 and waiting until 67 is several $100s per month. Every month for the rest of your life. That's not a minor detail. That's the difference between a retirement that's comfortable and one that's constantly tight. If you're married, this becomes even more strategic. Spousal benefits, survivor benefits, and filing coordination can be stacked to maximize what your household pulls in. This is not something to figure out alone. And I say that as someone who tried. One session, just 1 hour, with a fee-only financial planner who specializes in Social Security optimization can literally be worth $50,000 or more across your retirement. That's not an exaggeration. That's documented. These aren't 10-year goals. These are this month moves, and each one of them accelerates you toward the point where your money starts working harder than you do. Remember that Sunday night at the kitchen table, that tight feeling when you looked at the number and wondered if you'd left it too long? I've sat at that same table, and here's what I've learned since. We didn't wait. We survived. We made it through 3 economic disasters that would have broken most people. We raised families. We held things together when the system kept rewriting the rules underneath us. And despite all of that, we still managed to put something away. That matters more than any financial calculator will ever tell you. Because the hardest part of building wealth isn't the second 100,000. It's not the third. It's the first. It's grinding through those years where it feels like nothing's moving, where the balance barely twitches, where every emergency pulls you 2 steps back. Getting to 100,000, or getting close to it, means you've already done the hardest work. And now the math flips. Compounding accelerates. Catch-up contributions stack. Social Security timing gives you levers nobody told us about. The next 10 years have more raw financial potential than any decade we've lived through, because now the system finally starts working in our favor. You don't need a time machine. You don't need to be 25 again. You need a plan, 3 moves, and the decade you've still got ahead of you. The first 100,000 changes the math. Everything after it changes your life. Quick reminder, yeah, I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Yeah, these are patterns I've studied and lived through that consistently work for people in our specific situation. If this shifted how you're thinking about that $100,000 milestone, drop a comment and tell me, where are you on that path right now? I read every single one.